Hey, welcome back, everyone. Picking up on our last hour, 45 minutes-ish. Let's pick up where we left off.
All right. So you are traveling on this train that is hopping dimensions. Selim notes that up ahead it's going to be a transition, that you're going to be going into a world where trains don't work, and you will be transitioning onto the backs of some giant beasts to travel through a series of worlds. And if you're traveling along this pathway, that's normal. You're going to have to do multiple transitions because there's no specific means of transport that will work the entire way. So that's coming. So you're chatting with Selim. Ananke, you are kind of, as usual, kind of hanging back and observing. That seems to be your kind of MO. You are starting to feel, you get a kind of a tickle of psychic connection. Something is sort of reaching out toward you. Now, you're a shaman, and so you're familiar with these kinds of things, but there are a number of sorts of events that could produce someone kind of reaching out and trying to connect to you. And your options include sort of opening up and accepting and letting the person kind of see who you are and engage with you. You could try to block that off and kind of blank your mind and not allow any connection to occur, in which case it's possible whoever's trying to reach out to you would not even know that there was any beginning of a connection that occurred. You could try doing other things, but that's kind of what's happening now.
No, I think we're gonna go with morbid curiosity. So if somebody's trying to ping her, she's gonna. All right, let's do this. So
right,
yeah, I'll actually help along.
Okay, you're answering that call. And this turns out to be friendly, because there's a danger in opening your mind up like this, because it can allow kind of a psychic battle to occur in various formats.
No, I figured that was the case.
Not to. I'm sorry?
But I figured that was the case, but also she would probably enjoy that kind of battle of,
Sure.
yeah, so it's more like, okay,
Right. So either way, right? All right. In this case, however, it is a positive thing, probably from your perspective, in that it is your father. Your father is Flyer North Guidance. He has a transfer stone that is attuned to you. And just to explain for the audience, transfer stones are these objects of power that can be used to reach out across worlds. They can be attuned to a particular person or place, and then if you have that, you can concentrate on that thing and reach out to that person or place to create a connection even across the entire Umbra. So you see your father, Flyer North Guidance. He is the war leader of the Serpent. He is a grizzled warrior. He has a huge mane of hair that he keeps tied back. He has more scars on his body from battles than you can count. And 20 years ago, he lost his left arm in a battle, so he has one arm off, which does not appear to really affect his ability to fight at all. And he is huge, as in he can pick you up with one hand easily, and you're not small, right? So he is huge and bulky, and his voice is low and grizzled. Lower than I can role play it, but you just sort of imagine that kind of Barry White voice. Okay, and he is concentrating on a transfer stone, and he says, "Ananke, my daughter, seeing you gladdens my heart in a way that to a greater degree than I can say.
Is there a visual connection, or is this purely?
You can open this up into a visual connection. You can between the two of you, in terms of how much you're concentrating, you can make this into something that no one else is seeing, and you can communicate without moving your mouth, without talking. It takes a little concentration. It's easier to just talk and psychically communicate at the same time. But if you kind of concentrate on keeping your features and your mouth not moving, you can communicate silently if you want to. If you wanted to, with him, you could open up this connection into a more visual thing, and other people could see sort of a visual halo of physical connection. But if you and he are limiting that, you can keep this quite private between the two. So you can see
I think under the circumstances, since it's her father, she's not. Normally she would showboat and make it a big spectacle, but under the circumstances, she's not sure what it is. So she'll try and make that connection so she can get a visual, but without everyone else seeing what's happening. And from there, she's like, Father, I'm pleased to see your face. Is there word from home?
There is nothing of great concern at this moment. I had heard from a few mutual friends that you were working on a rescue mission, and I wanted to call and discuss that. Is this a time that you are able to talk, or is this inconvenient for you?
That's a good question. We're just traveling at this point, right?
Yeah. You could step away. You could excuse yourself to use the restroom. These characters do have biological functions. That's not different between us and the humans and them, right? So you could do that. You could just sit in the corner and keep this as quiet as you please, and that would be fine. You would imagine that if for example, Hrolf were to be, he's a fellow person with powers. If he were to kind of reach out and connect with you, he might be able to detect that this is happening. But if he's not really paying attention to you, that's probably not going to happen. Variaut, you believe, has some powers, so he might have some similar abilities. But again, if they're not looking, they're probably not detecting this.
I think I'm very much still kind of focused on Selim. I'm I'm about to get to my maneuverings here, where I inquire about his lady wife and maybe get some dirt. I do have to say that we are approaching the time when our rural internet might give out. So if we vanish, I apologize. We'll be back shortly.
Yep. So we'll expect that to potentially happen. If so, I'll shift some of the focus of roleplay to Travis and Jacob for a little while until you can get yourself back. For the moment, I'll continue playing out this little scene here with Ananke. And what he says is that I know that you are attempting to rescue a creature. You may not be aware of quite the circumstances. I completely support your desire to rescue this creature. It is important for that to happen in a manner that the royals of Agorus cannot lead back to us in the Serpent.
Yeah, it appears that they dropped. Okay. Well, now we know what it looks like when they drop.
Predicted. Right on time. So when they come back, we'll finish that up. Let's say that Agorus and Hrolf are talking with Selim at the moment. we can certainly say that you're catching up on some, information about family members and people you know from the Maelstrom. So there's plenty of background gossipy kind of information that you could be catching up on. But are there questions you want to ask of him, or things you want to convince him about, or?
Yeah. If Paul.
No, go ahead. I had something unrelated.
Sure. If they I was already told that this is basically a worthless trinket at this point. The little item that came off that demon.
Mm-hmm.
Under the pretense that this is probably not important and won't give anything away to him, I think I would produce it and say, does this mean anything to you?
To seal him. So he takes it and looks at it, and he says he thinks he saw something like it some time ago that you know of demons, of course. I have heard of your adventures. So I'm guessing that the marks on your face have something to do with such things. My understanding is that there are different clans of demons, and I'm trying to remember. If I recall correctly, I don't know the full details, but one of the clans is known as Dreth. And this looks very much like a symbol that was on a battle flag that I saw maybe 120 cycles ago, in which there were demons from that clan. So
I take it this was far from Agorus.
Yes. This was very far from Agorus. This was deep in the Umbra. So that was some time ago, but it looks very much like the symbol I saw on that battle flag.
I appreciate you saying so. I knew that your previous encounters out in the Umbra as a storm knight would be valuable.
Well, you and I have fought side by side on more than one occasion.
I'm going to kind of look at him for a second, and I'm going to be like, by the way, I'm sure that you've received news of this with your invitation, but at the ball, I don't believe that knights are one of the accepted costumes.
He laughs. Yes, we've been informed, and we've done some research on these balls, and I did attend a previous one 40, 50 years ago. They blend together. And the rules were different then, but yes, it's my understanding that we're going to have some kind of creature. Let's see, I seem to be coming back. Yep,
Yeah,
there we go.
Perfect.
Welcome back. Let's hope it stays that way. Okay, so Navi, let me finish the conversation that we had started, that Agorus is having with Selim. So yes, we're aware that we're going to have some kind of costume made. Are there tailors that you can put us in contact with when we get to the city? We had planned on making some inquiries when we get there.
Yeah, I'll pat him on the shoulder and say, absolutely, I'll direct you to the finest. By the way, bushy tails are definitely in season.
I was afraid you might say something like that. Meanwhile, Navi, Ananke is talking with her father. I'm not quite sure when you cut out exactly.
Discretion is the better part of valor, I believe.
Okay. So pretty much you heard all of what your father, Flyer North Guidance, had said. That the concern is that if you take action in Agorus to rescue this dragon, it is, he's in favor of you rescuing this dragon, but he wants you to be very careful that it is not something that can be traced to you or to anyone else from the serpent.
No, I think that Ananke takes her father's word seriously. They're not always in alignment per se, but if he says to be discreet, she's going to do her utmost to be discreet.
That would be a great favor to me. I would much appreciate it, and I can assure you that I believe it is in the best interest of the serpent.
We're not at odds with Agorus, are we?
No, we are not. We are friendly with them, but there has been, over the course of some years, a breeding program along the lines of the breeding program that develops the bloodlines, to breed dragons from the serpent. There are many creatures from the serpent. Breed a line of intelligent dragons who are themselves able to travel through the Umbra. And unfortunately, a dragon has been captured inadvertently, a young one. This is the dragon that you're aware of. And while we are not unfriendly with Agorus, the existence of them is something that we've kept quiet because we are concerned that they would be concerned that there would be a change in the balance of power under these circumstances if we were fully successful with this process.
Understood, Father.
So it would be best to cause no harm to Agorus, do nothing to create an incident, but to keep this quiet.
She takes that as her time to end the conversation. She gives kind of a very affirmative nod that she understands completely, and she'll see it done, and then she cuts the connection.
All right. Thank you, daughter, and it's done. All right, so you've had your quiet conversation with Flyer North Guidance. Just a brief explanation about names in the Serpent. There's a class of shamans in the Serpent who make kind of psychic connections to this great creature. The Serpent itself is a physical creature that's about 1,000 miles long that people live on and in. Most of the shamans are not of the blood; they're just connected to the serpent. But when they go into a trance, they connect with the serpent, and the serpent provides people. If you ask, "What is this person's correct name?" the serpent will give you a name, which is usually a concatenation of words and sometimes numbers, which sounds kind of random, except that no two people have ever gotten the same name. So there seems to be something to that, and you as a shaman would be able to do similar kinds of connections with the serpent. But that you'll get names like that from people with the serpent. So people would call him Flyer, his full name being Flyer North Guidance. So moving along. Variaut, you've seen the other two gentlemen speaking with Selim. Is there anything that you want to connect to him about?
Yeah, I think as we shift the camera, Valriaut was like, bushy tails are all well and good, but everybody knows that the true fashion is feathers. Anyway, I was just wondering.
Feathers, you say. That might be more along the lines of what we'd be comfortable with.
Excellent. See, I'm doing the Cape of Feathers. We can dress maybe not to match, obviously, because then we would clash and it would be awful. And obviously, with your stature, I would not wear it near so well. It is just It has been so long since I spent time in your household. I was wondering, what news of your lady wife? Really, I'm trying to be kind of circumspect around this, trying to be. I don't want to come out and ask this guy, what last got you in trouble? I really just want to see, how are things, in what kind of mood will I find her, that kind of thing.
So he tells you a couple of stories about Morgaine. Morgaine is sort of a larger than life person that people tell stories about.
Terrifying, of course.
More so than him himself. And he appreciated your little comment about, him being of greater stature, but technically you being a member of the blood means that you're technically of higher precedence in the noble orders than he would be. But he doesn't make note of that. You're both aware that you gave him a nice...
By marriage, of course.
And he's that's just the way of things. He's not bothered by that, but you got a little glinty nod there. So he tells some stories about Morgaine and what's happened recently with her, a bit of a quest through the Umbra to track down some pirates and raiders who have been pestering the Maelstrom and interfering with trade. A little thing about how one of the Storm Knights got captured and needed to be rescued. As was mentioned earlier, she really finds this whole masked ball thing to be a bit of a waste of time. She has plenty of other things on her plate to be dealing with, but she understands that these diplomatic things sometimes need to be dealt with.
She has to make an appearance, I understand.
Yes.
Completely.
He does not expect her to stay all 4 nights of the ball. That she's expected to make an appearance on the first night. That there's a royal progress event that must be attended on the second night. There'll be dancing throughout. He's not sure whether she's going to be there on days 3 or 4, or whether she'll find some way to make excuses and head home.
Well, I will certainly have to see if she will dote on me enough to have a few words, just for old time's sake. You understand?
Of course.
It will wound me if I pass this ball. We are always so scattered, and it is hard. Even though I am not of your family, I consider her like my mother. I cannot simply just let her go.
When you were young, with the household, so you are in essence a member of the family. She is ahead. If you would like me, to call to her, we can go have a chat.
No.
She's in a bit of a mood today, so
I tremble to imagine a mood.
You know how she gets.
I do indeed, sir. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, I will not impose upon her until we are at the masquerade. I do not want to. She has time alone now. She has time to compose herself, to gather her thoughts, to ready herself for what lies ahead. If imposition must occur, it is while she is already imposed upon. Yes?
I understand. Yeah, that is perfectly acceptable. And if there is something I can do for you at the ball, introductions you'd like me to make, certainly I am a foreigner in your land, but if there will be many people from many worlds there. If there are people that you would like me to introduce you to, who I know, you have but to ask.
With certitude, absolutely. Tell me one last trifle. I apologize. I have been following exploits of the Storm Knight since I was very small. Obviously, Hrolf can speak to that. He taught me so much about them, and of course, seeing them firsthand in the household. I was just wondering, is there perhaps a an up-and-comer, a rising star that she has taken under her wing? Anything of this nature?
Interesting. Yes. There is a young man who incurred her wrath at first, and she pushed him quite hard. He made some foolish mistakes attempting to impress her initially. And
I know how this story ends.
you remember how that goes, right? But I mentioned that there was a hostage taken by the pirates, and he was the one who tracked them down and discovered their location in a very obscure, deep place in a strange world. I'll have to tell you about it sometime.
I would love to hear it.
Have you been? I you know that I write, yes.
Of course.
In an upcoming volume of my series on the Storm Knights, I'll be telling the story. If you'd like to look at some of the pages, I could certainly let you take a look at them.
If you have them handy, that would be
Sure.
my review.
And I do have a few volumes. If you're interested in a signed copy, I'd be happy to pass that on.
Oh, you flatter me, I must say.
No, you flatter me, sir.
Well, flattery, it occasionally flies from all angles. It is like the rain in the maelstrom.
Yes.
Yes, I would love some light reading while we pass the time on our way to the masquerade, if you do not mind, if it is no trouble.
I will have one of my people deliver you a stack of volumes later today.
Selim, it is a joy radiating from my heart that I see you in this fashion once again, and I am so happy to see you so well.
Yes, I'm good to see. It's very good to see you, and all of you. It is nice to see a group of young people from different places, from Agorus, from the Serpent, from the Maelstrom, traveling together, being friends. That's not something that always happens. So I am deeply pleased to see that.
Yes, it is.
We look forward to encountering you again at the ball as well.
As do I. If you don't mind, I have a few matters to attend to.
Of course.
Okay. So he heads off with his people. The train shortly thereafter ends in a station, and you transfer onto some very, very large beasts. They are almost kaiju sized.
The way I pictured it when you said that we transferred is like there were like horse-ridden like wranglers on the side of the train that we had to hop onto, and then ride the horses into another, and then the horses changed.
No, in this case, there's a station that's raised on a large platform, and there are three very large beasts. Obviously, they're quite small by serpent standards, but they are quite large, and they have palanquins on top of them. And you get off at the station, and there's a causeway over to the back of the beast that you've been assigned to, and you cross over to this beast. And after a little bit of preparation, these beasts just start heading off across a vast plain of, and you can see, there's, striding along through a plain of kind of rocky obsidian glass with a sky that's red and yellow.
Awesome.
You are, and after, we can kind of move time along a little bit. This is a journey that's going to take a day or two before you arrive at the in the world's kind of outlying the caverns of Agorus. So you travel along for a day or so on these beasts, and then you transfer to a different means of transport, which is going to travel through, be a different train that travels through some tunnels. So some worlds that start getting more and more like the caverns of Agorus. And eventually you're going to end up there. If there are things that you want to do in the meantime, that's fine, but I'm going to assume that it's reasonable to move time ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say that you arrive in the caverns of Agorus. The structure of this place is that at the center, this is a world that is an infinite just rock going forever. And at the center of this world is the orb, which is something like a sun. It's a few miles across, so it's not the size of a star. But it is an object of incredible power. And then surrounding that are a series of caverns, very, very large caverns, that millions of people live in. So there are cities and farms and plantations and parks, and it's a very advanced civilization. It is one that magic doesn't really work in, and high technology don't really work in. But it is the center of a huge trading empire. So there are people and things from all sorts of places. There is a lot of steam power here because the orb provides plenty of heat, and so they have a system of steam power and steam trains and pneumatic tubes. They have a system of mirrors that spread light throughout the caverns. There's a series of, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, about 7 cities spread out around this place, and there's one main large city where the royal palace is. You can easily acquire apartments. The ball itself is about a week away, so you can find a place to stay. You can find a hotel or apartment or something like that. You are all very rich by these standards of a place like this, so you can afford anything along those lines. And you are now in the caverns of Agorus.
Yeah, and I think Agorus will turn to Valriaut first and foremost, and maybe pat him on the back and be like, "Welcome home. I hope it hasn't been too long for you."
It has been ages, and the smell is just as I recall. It is good to be home, I think.
I probably give a kind of side eye when you're not looking.
Second home.
Right.
Second home.
Right.
For somebody who doesn't come from this place, you're in a big open cavern, so it's not too enclosing, but it's not, open. People from Agorus going to places with a sky, that feels really strange to them. And some of them, some people would be terrified to go any place with a sky. It's comfortable to be in a cavern. Any place else from that is unnatural. Agorus, I'm assuming that you have some kind of a place that you live here. You could have apartments in the palace. You could have your own place that you've established, a villa out in one of the caverns, or whatever you think you have. Where do you, or you you don't really have a place?
I definitely think he has accommodations at the palace. I definitely see Agorus as being like the favored heir out of any other children that the queen might have. So even if he's out or away from the palace, I think they keep his space there and maintained. But I probably also have a grounds away from the palace where I would work with my my group, maybe like a small post that's kind of like the anti-demon land.
Okay. Yeah, you could certainly decide that your people maintain a compound of some kind, or you could say it's whatever you want it to be. It could be kind of like a monastery. It could be like a military-ish compound. You have the authority to do that. Or you could say it's much more on the down low.
Yeah, actually, I think it probably is more on the down low than anything. Demons in general, even for everybody of the of power in this world, and not just Agorus, but the greater multiverse. I think the demons are probably a very insidious threat that is the kind of thing that's met with disbelief for those who haven't seen it with their own eyes, or conspiracy when people are like not sure if somebody's telling them the truth or just trying to like bid for power in the royal games and stuff like that. So like the people who don't like go out seeking it, I think it's almost like a Men in Black kind of thing where you're like, oh yeah, aliens, I'm sure. But the people who obviously work on it are in a different position. You know what I mean?
So your people keep things quiet, maybe have safe houses. Would that sound accurate to you?
Yeah.
And kind of different places spread throughout Agorus that are where they maintain, safe places to stay. Then they have agents in different places. Does that sound like an accurate description?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're coming toward the end of what we had planned for play, and we've gotten you to Agorus. One thing to consider is that you do have as one of your resources an agent. So you could spend some time making connections and deciding what you're going to do with that person, but you might want to think about who that person is, what they can do, what they're likely to do. They have expertise in espionage, so you could be planting them someplace in the palace or someplace else. You also each have as a resource a transfer stone of the kind that Ananke's father used to connect to you. So you could decide that, for example, you could each have one that is attuned to one of the others, in which case you'd want to decide what, whose stone is attuned to whom. That would allow you to connect with each other and communicate with each other behind people's back, or to physically transfer, because if you make a very clear open connection between two people, one of them can just kind of reach their hand out and pull the other person through physically through the universe. So that's something to think about in terms of resources you have available.
I had a quick question. You mentioned that here the magic doesn't work very well here. What does that mean as far as affecting our various abilities?
Yeah, something that's a little bit that bloodline characters generally find a little bit frustrating is that because your powers involve manipulating the structure of the multiverse, when you are in a Vergence, that structure is more solid. So it's harder to shift. It's harder to make changes in. It takes, that doesn't mean your powers are useless, but all of the, anybody with any of the bloodline characters, yourselves as well as all of the NPCs you're going to be interacting with, they find it easy to do stuff out in the Umbra, and now they have to concentrate and put work into shifting the universe when they're here. So lots of bloodline characters, some of them find it uncomfortable to actually be in a Vergence because it's such a pain in the ass to do this work. So mechanically in the game, that will mean you'll have to, things that wouldn't require a roll will require a roll here. Things that might be, controlled great in the Umbra might be, risky or even desperate here, less effect, etc. So your powers still work, but you have to work harder at them. But a sword works anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason why bloodline characters, they don't tend to rely on things like guns or laser pistols, because a sword works in just about any universe you find yourself in. A
Something
laser
sharp is always handy.
could be handy in one place, but you make a shift and suddenly it doesn't work. So there's a tendency toward trusting certain kinds of artifacts more than others. And you are in a place here where the physical laws are such that high tech tends to not work.
Cool. Do we want to wrap up there?
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable stopping point.
All right. Is there any in normal blades? There's an experience we go through at the end. Is there anything like that in Vergence?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the way Vergence is set up, instead of the normal Blades crew sheets, there are a series of threats that can be chosen, and you form an alliance to deal with that threat. In this case, the threat that the group of you chose was the Masked Paul. It's a sort of a campaign structure that you chose, and so. The structure here is there's no individual XP or experience points. The alliance, the group of characters advance together. And the structure for each of the threats is a little bit different from one to another. It's a little more fiddly with some of the other threats that have been established. For this one, there can be one advance during the campaign. This is set up for relatively short campaign play. There can be one advance during the campaign, and that occurs. Each of you has a goal that you want to achieve and has established a minor milestone toward that goal. So looking at and once all of those minor milestones have been checked off and you decide when they have, then the crew gets an advance. Those milestones are, for Hrolf, you want to find the location or map of the sculpture. Agorus needs to discover who has been drawn into the demonic plot, unwittingly or otherwise. Valriaut must find leverage on Morgaine, a favored dance partner, an old shame or something. And Ananke must arrange for a diversion. So I'm not seeing how you've all kind of moved toward those initial milestones, but I wouldn't say that you've met those yet. No. But you want to think about trying to, during the next session, think about, if you can achieve one of your goals, that would be great. If you could even just achieve all your milestones, that would even be a perfectly reasonable thing to do in session one.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so we have been playing Vergence by Dave here. We are Hacked in the Dark, a network, a community of Forged in the Dark designers. Everyone want to give a shout out on who you are and what you do and what you're working on?
Okay, well, I'm Drake. She's Navi. We are both working on a hack about courtly intrigue as well, although it's in a kind of medieval-esque fantasy Venice. And that's called.
Notice some overlap in theme.
A little bit, yeah. We like stories of skullduggery and fantasy, so that's pretty good. You can follow us both on Twitter. I'm on Drake and Dice, and she's at Navi Music.
I think the name of your game might have cut out there when Dave talked.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's Court of Blades.
Travis, you want to go?
Sure. I'm Travis. I'm more or less just a community member here with Hacked in the Dark. I enjoy games enough so that I made it my job, more or less. Working with Dogmite to make accessories for people who play role-playing games. Although I also muse about hacks, I have nothing developing entirely yet.
And thanks for your company shouting us out as well. That was Dogmite, and I believe I retweeted them on the Twitter as well, so you can see them there. My name is Jacob. You can find me at Jacob also on Twitter, or it's also my itch is Jacob also. I'm making Asphalt and Trouble, a game about biker gangs in the post-climate apocalypse, fighting corporations and each other.
Very cool.
And you can find me on Twitter at smallcoolgames1, so the digit 1. You can also find Vergence and Small Cool Games at on itch.io. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right. We will be playing every week at this time slot. Please stop by and join us. If you miss an episode, everything will be going up on YouTube as well. So check us out there. And if you liked it, come back. And our Twitter account is also Hacked in the Dark. Check us out there. Follow us there. And that has links to everything, including the Discord, where we coordinate all of our shows and also talk about hacks. And it's also the official Blades Discord. So if you just want to talk about Blades, that's also the same place. All right. We will see everyone next week. Take care.